Welcome to the coaches training. This was developed in the spring of 2023. There are resources linked throughout the description that are referenced in this training, so please make sure you're checking out those resources as well. First off, we just want to thank you so much for your participation in coaching with Noblesville United. We could not do this league without you. We need you as a volunteer, and we want to just thank you for coming out and your willingness to coach your player or just to coach because you love the game of soccer. Either way, we love it. Our goals for you at Noblesville United is to develop you as a person, as a coach, and to basically improve our game day experience for our parents, our guardians, for the players, and for our referees. This league's all about development. We want to develop players, we want to develop you as coaches, and we want to develop referees. The day's schedule is going to be, we're going to talk about player development first, task of a coach, the levels of play and the rules, practice planning, game planning, the tools of coaching, and the Noblesville United coaching program. One of the questions we ask around here all the time, and this was started by Brent Henderson or Rudy, is what is your why? Why are you coaching? And the answer may be simply that you're coaching because you were asked to, because there was a need. It could be because your kid didn't have a coach, so it's just a need. It could be because you love soccer. It could be because your kid's coach last year, you thought, I could do better than that. Whatever your reason is, remember to focus back into your why when you get frustrated. So that remind yourself that you're here for a reason and that you can fulfill that reason and that it's worth it. So as we talk about the players have a why they're playing as well, and the reason they're here to play is it's fun. A study was done. 48,000 players across multiple sports were asked why they play sports, and 9 out of the 10 kids rated the number one reason they play sports is because it's fun. The kids identified 81 different reasons why they play sports. Not the last, but the 48th reason of the 81 is to win. So what this shows you is that the kids want to be there to have fun. They don't care about winning. So what we're going to encourage you as a coach to do as you develop and as you help players develop, focus on the fun aspect. Don't worry about the winning aspect. The more fun you make it, for every player, no matter what the skill level is, the better it will be for them as they develop in their game of soccer. So your job as a coach is to develop the player holistically, which what this means is that you're going to concerned about their skill, technical skill. You're going to care about their mental health, and you're going to care about their long-term desire to play soccer. And so, as you can see now, the slide I have on here is not quite right, and I apologize for that. But that is your goal. That's what you'll be focusing on all the time, and you'll do that because you'll out of respect for the player, and you'll respect them by letting them play half of every single game, no matter what their ability is, right? By if they're not getting something to help them, explain it a different way, whatever it might be, to help them gain respect and develop holistically. We are a developmental program. We are a grassroots program. We are a recreational program, which is different than being in a performance or competitive environment. In a performance competitive environments, your abilities and skills dictate how much you play in a soccer game. It dictates a lot of things, in fact, because you're kind of moving up. You're trying to get a scholarship. You're trying to make a regional team or a national level team. That's not what's happening in recreational soccer at the developmental level. We're just trying to help you develop. And that may be developed to whatever your full potential is. And your full potential may never be an all-star player, the best in the area. But it may be that your full potential allows you to love and play soccer the rest of your life. And that's what we want to do. We know that children develop to their full potential through game-like experiences. So to make something game-like, you need to have usually teams, you need to have usually rules, and you need to have some way to score points. So we want to create game-like experiences in our practices whenever possible. We also know that children learn by participating in an enjoyable or a fun environment. So keeping that fun environment more than the performance environment where it's all about the outcome of the win will keep the environment more fun and they will develop more. And then we also know that players will develop when you support them individually. And that usually means having a quiet conversation with them or talking specifically about what they can do better or how they can improve, or getting them individualized attention and instruction where it's clear that you are showing them that you care about them as a player and as a person. And this can be done through even while you're doing a drill, quiet conversation about, hey, that's a good idea right there, but if you open your foot up and you get your hips around, you'll be able to make that pass a little bit easier. Or it could be done through, hey, how's school going? How's your play? Are you liking your part? And getting to know them outside of what they're doing in soccer. Because there's a reason they're in recreational soccer a lot of times. And a lot of times that reason is they're just too busy with a lot of other things first. Players develop at a different rate, and they understand soccer obviously as they develop. So if you're at the youngest age group at Noblesville United, that's U6, they're saying this. They're saying the ball is my toy and I'm playing with my toy. So as you think about their development, give them the ball. Let them use the ball as much as possible in your practices, so that they can enjoy playing with their toy, which is the ball. As they go to U8, they start to understand that their friends are out there with them on the field, or at least some friends are out there. And so they may be like, hey, I got my ball. Let's play together, you and me. We're buddies. And so they might just start to play with one other player, two other players. By the time we get to U10, and this is where we start having referees, we divide our levels into recreational and recreational plus, or rec plus levels. They start to understand I'm playing with a team. So I need to work together with my teammates no matter if I like them or not as people. When they get to U12, we start to specialize in positions, and they are understanding that they have a position and role inside of their team they need to play. I always recommend that a player has two positions, because you just never know. It's always good to learn more positional stuff, and it's good to always have a backup for every position. By the time they get to U14 plus, what they're basically working with is, I'm going to be the best player that I can be for my role and my position in the team. So they are individually focusing on, okay, if I'm a defensive mid, where do I need to be on the field to help my team the most and move in my space, versus just understanding that I'm in a position. They now understand they're working on the best way to be in that position. So that's some of the developmental goals that you go through. So as you go to develop at the youngest levels, the U6 levels, your activities and your practices should be based on games that emphasize exploration and experimentation. So it might be things like, hey, do you think you can dribble down and between those two cones and then take a shot, right? It's fun. They can dribble through things. They're exploring the field. They're experimenting with maybe a new skill. And then they should have ball experience in game-like situations. So it might be, all right, let's play sharks and minnows. There'll be two teams. There's the shark and there's the minnows. And the minnows are trying to dribble past the shark, and the shark is trying to steal that ball. And if they steal the ball, then someone joins their team. And it gets them the ability to have ball-like experiences in a game-like situation that's easy to learn. And then they can explore their physical abilities. Can they run? Are they fast? Right? These are questions they basically are asking themselves, and they're exploring to see what they can do with it. At the U8 level, you should again focus your activities more on goals of attacking and defending. Can we attack together as a team? Can we defend together as a team? Now, they may only do it with a teammate, but your goal is to get them to understand that it works together as a team. Again, you want to have that ball-like experiences in game-like situations with attentions for the key qualities of a player. We'll look at key qualities here a little bit so you understand what a key quality of a developmental player looks like. But you're focusing in on those qualities you'll see in a moment. And then you want them experiences of attacking and defending together, and reading the game and making decisions. Are we in attacking right now? Are we defending right now? And if we are doing that, where should I be on the field? At U10, you want them to develop relationships with other players beyond just their friends. I like to call it chemistry. And this is where I'll start asking questions of players. Who do you like playing with? Why do you like playing with that person? How do you guys play together that's different than playing with someone else on the team? And start to understand chemistry on the field. Understanding players' chemistry and who they like to play with can help you put players on a field that are close together that will play smarter soccer together. And it can improve your team. So it's a part of you becoming a coach is to understand that chemistry exists, identifying with the player what the chemistry is, and then creating a lineup and roster to benefit the chemistry of your team. Um, so you also want them to understand how their decisions and movement affect others. And I'll say this throughout this presentation, 97% of soccer is played without the ball on your foot. It's you moving in space to an appropriate space to help your team. So understanding the movement and how it affects others is really important. Plus, you need to do all the U8 needs, and you should not specialize in your positions yet at this point. Players should be moving around the field every game, playing offense a little bit, defense, midfield if capable. Some players can't play midfield; they just don't have the energy for it, and that's fine. But they should at least every player should be experiencing offense and defense. At the U12 level, we want to develop fundamental understandings of the meaning of the role and position. So now it'd be like, hey, you're going to be our left forward and our left midfielder. You need to understand how to do this properly. Where should you be on the field? How should you move depending on where you're at? What are your responsibilities in that position? That's what you're really focusing in on at the U12 level. So this is where you begin to specialize a little bit players into positions. You can do that for a few games at a time, saying, okay, you could say like, hey, you're going to be left forward every game now for the next 3 games. Or you could do half and half, or what I sometimes do is I call it 2/3 rule. So 2/3 of the game you're going to be in left forward, and 1/3 of the time you're going to be in left mid. So they have their primary, and then I can swap a left mid with the left forward in that way, and have if I can get 2 players to be in that position. But ultimately, you just never know where they're going to end up in life or what a team need is. So the more you can get them to understand positions on the field and the responsibilities, the better off you're serving the player, but also any future coach or team they play on. By the time we get to U14, the key is to grow and to designate. So you're going to grow their understanding of the meaning of the role, and they're going to in the position, and they're going to be basically designated that task on the team. So at this point, it's in some occasions you have players who can just play anywhere, and they maybe just play anywhere, but most of the time you're going to be like, hey, dude, you're the left center back. That's what you're doing today. You're going to kill it. You're going to play 100% of the game because I only have 5 defenders, and you're my best defender, right? And so you're going to basically yell them like, and I need you to do exactly this thing. And you're going to help them to understand and grow the meaning of their role in the position and what it means to be the best in that position. You're also going to look at specific tasks they need to do. We just talked about that. Everything at the previous level, and by this point you are absolutely specializing players, but make sure they always have a backup position. So one of the things to remember in player development that basically every player is unique. They do not develop at the same rate or to the same level, partly because physical ability, but partly because of just desirability, right? We are not trying to get the very, very best performance out of these players possible. That's a performance environment. We are trying to help them develop to whatever level they would like. But if you have a kid who never practices soccer outside of practice, which is I would bet 80 to 90% of the kids in this league, they're just never going to reach their full potential, and that's okay. It's a developmental league, but what they're going to do is have fun, and they're going to be able to do other things in life like taekwondo, show choir, you know, scouts, whatever it is in their life. So your goal is to basically focus on that individual player, and help them to understand the game of soccer and develop in the game of soccer. And then your job is also to coach the team as a whole, but always be focusing on the individual player, right? Give every single player attention. So here's the key qualities I mentioned earlier. The key qualities of every single developmental or grassroots player in the United States are to read and understand the game and make decisions. So are we attacking? Are we defending? Where should I be on the field? Take initiative and be proactive. I see that they're about to steal the ball. I might adjust my position because I need to get into more defensive position. So I'm taking initiative because I see something happening. I'm being proactive before it happens to be in a good spot for it. Demonstrate focus. Can I stay on task in practice? Can I stay on task in game? Can I execute with my optimal technical abilities for the player? And can I take responsibility and accountability for my own actions and development? It can't be somebody else's fault if I miskick a ball. It's mine, right? And it's okay. Even the best player in the world doesn't, score a goal, but 10% of the time when they take a shot on goal. And that's a fact. Like, that's statistically a fact. So if a player, is mad that they missed a shot on goal, it's not the end of the world. Just tell them. Best player in the world, 10% of the time. So, a couple things to keep in mind at this level. Attention span rule. So you can multiply the player's age times 5 to 10 seconds, and that's how long you expect them to pay attention. So when you're doing group huddles and explaining a concept, if you are at a U6 level, you probably got them for 30 seconds or less to explain what it is. What this means is you're going to probably end up doing a lot of little activities that are pretty easy to explain, for example, right? So keep things short, keep them to the point. You should expect player development to not be linear. You may get a player finally to be in the right position and killing it at defensive mid, and then for 2 games, and on the third game, all of a sudden they've reverted back to bad habits. That's normal, right? Or a common one is a player who wants to dribble through everyone on the team, and you finally get them to start passing, and then they have a tough game, and all of a sudden they're back to dribbling through the players because they didn't execute passing well. You're going to have to expect player development to kind of happen and then retract, and then they'll grow a little bit and then retract a little bit. But each time they grow, they'll retract a little less, and it'll become easier to get them back to where they need to be. Obviously, players don't develop at the same pace, and that it's real that player ceilings exist, right? Like some players, you're just never going to be able to get them to do certain things. Once you understand what you think the ceiling is for that player, um, play them, but put them in good positions so they can be successful, right? If they're not a really fast player, and they don't really know to be on the field, maybe you put them in at center forward because there's really just not as much movement at center forward compared to other positions they might be on the field depending on your formation. So those are just things to keep in mind. All right. So U.S. soccer is where all this stuff is coming from. So I want you to understand that when we talk about grassroots players, that's a U.S. soccer term. U.S. Soccer also has put together what they want every single age level to develop with. So, at the 4v4s or the U6 levels, we're working on shooting and passing or dribbling forward in the attack. And on the defense, we want to protect the ball and steal the ball. So that's where protecting the ball and stealing the ball, like sharks and minnows, even though it seems like a really basic game, it's 100% aligned to what U.S. Soccer tells us we need to teach these players at this level. We play 5v5 at U8, but we really want them to spread out, and we want them spread out across the board. We want them to start thinking about creating passing options and passing more, and we want them to work together as a team to support the attack. Defensively, we want them to work together to make it compact, meaning once we understand we're on defense, we need to basically get organized, and we need to stay organized defensively, and those are the qualities. And you can see those qualities go through the entire program. We utilize this entire these player development standards through our trainings in Rec Plus. So starting at U10, we have Rec Plus. We are basically focusing on these items through that development, these concepts, so players hopefully can hear it and understand it, and coaches hear it and understand it, and are utilizing that in their own practices. So one of the key things to understand about soccer is that soccer is played in 4 phases. There's the attacking phase, there's the defending phase, and then there's the 2 transitional phases of losing the ball and winning the ball. The quicker your player and as a team can understand the transitional phases of soccer, the more likely they will be in the best spot to make the right play. And because 97% of soccer is played without the ball at your foot, understanding where to be on the field is a huge part of soccer. If you can be in the right space at the right time, now all you have to do is make the right play, right? And that's a little bit more of a technical ability, but if you're not in the right space at the right time, you can never make the right play, even if you're the most technical player on the field. So sometimes you have players who really get this concept a lot quicker, but may not be as talented, but they have more potential because they're understanding the way soccer works and where to be. And once a player understands where to be on the field, they have probably more potential than the player who already can dribble the ball but never will play as a team or be at the field at the right time, who just happen to get across the ball once in a while and then dribbles through people and scores. So keep in mind, this is what you're really pushing, is that those transitional moments in soccer: winning the ball, losing the ball. On this final kind of slide when it goes into development, you can kind of see there's these zones of development. The blue ones are basically recreational or developmental levels. The red zones can become recreational or performance zones, and the white, obviously at this point, if you're still playing, you're probably playing in a performance environment at the college level. Now, if you're in an adult league or something, that's different, but you're still playing competitively. So this kind of talks you through like learning the fundamentals of the game, learning the basic understandings of the attack, learning the basic transitions, right? Learning the fundamentals given higher his or her role, position, and task. So you kind of see it's just another way to look at it and see what we just talked about as a graphic. So, in the end of all of this, as you talk about player development, we've talked about what's your why to start this whole section. Let's finish it off with, what do you want players and parents to say about you when your time of coaching them is done? I mean, my hope was that they'd always say I was the best coach their kid ever had. And that was literally what drove me at times to put the extra work in, to put more time into my communication to the parents, and to, that's what I wanted. That's who I am as a person. If I'm going to do something, I want to be the best I can be as possible. And so it doesn't mean it has to be your goals, but you should understand what your goal is for the parents, and then your actions should align to your goals. So one of my favorite quotes in life is, a goal without a plan is just a wish, right? So if your goal is for your parents to say great things about you, what's the plan? And that's a little bit what today's about in this training. All right, as a soccer coach, you have 6 tasks according to U.S. Soccer: coaching games, coaching their trainings or their practice sessions, leading the team, leading the player, managing the performance environment, so that's managing everything about where they play, and then overall leadership. We'll talk about some of these in more detail. Some of them I think are self-explanatory. If you take advantage of getting your Grassroots licenses, which we want you to do and we will pay for you to do, you will go heavily into these topics. That's why I just want to touch on these lightly today. Our task of a coach for Noblesville United coaches is we want you to know the rules, know the unwritten rules, which are that every player plays half of a game. And I think it should be half of every half, because no parent wants to come to the game and watch their kid not play the entire first half. Or it should be at least close. Sometimes, like if you got a 30-minute half, maybe the player plays 14 minutes first half and 16 minutes the second half. That's okay. It's close. Do everything in your power to not win by 4 more goals out of respect for the other team, the coaches, the parents, and to help your players develop in different ways. Because at some point, if you score a lot of goals, there's nothing else to learn. Generally speaking, use the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. So treat coaches, players, parents well, referees well, which is the other point. I guess I spelled it out a little more in detail there. And then communicate. Communicate with your players, communicate with your parents, communicate with the league. What's going on? What needs to happen? Where's there a problem? Let us help you solve it. We won't know there's a problem or how to solve it until you tell us. Next thing I want to mention is just our field numbering. So if you're on a 9B9 field, you'll be fields 1 through 4. This is our U12s. If you're a U10 coach, that's a 7B7. Those are fields 5 through 8. They're back here. And this graphic's a little older, so I apologize on that because I don't have it up to date. But if you are a U8 coach, there's now 4 fields right here. And these 4 fields are the U8 coaches, or U8 fields. We now have 5 fields that kind of go like right around in here. These are the U6 fields, and we now have 3 fields at the U14 plus level that are 11v11 fields. So those are where our fields land this time. All right, just so you know, there are 2 key rules come from an international body called International Football Association Board and FIFA laws of the game, and then we have our own rules. We utilize the FIFA laws of the game, but with modifications for the different age levels. These links will be in the course description for this video, so definitely if you want to read more about those, check them out. We're focused in on the Noblesville rules here. So these are Noblesville rules. We have a little grid here, a little document. Again, I'll have those linked in the descriptions. You can look at those and have those on hand, but I'll break them down a little bit more detail for you here. At the U6 level, we usually try to play 4v4. I think we'll have 4v4. We have a lot of players at that level. But if you need to play 3v3, you can. The coach can be on the field. You'll use a size 3 soccer ball. You will play 4 quarters, and each quarter will be 10 minutes in length. There'll be no goalkeepers. You'll restart all your plays with the kick-ins, not throw-ins. There's no heading. When the goal kick happens, it'll happen from the goal line or the baseline of the field, and the defending team will move to half field so that the other team can start replay. And there'll be 2 games happening at the same time. As a coach, the number one thing here is make everyone spread out constantly. Every time there's a dead ball goes out of bounds, make everyone spread out. At the U8 level, we play 5v5. The coach is no longer on the field, but the coach can fully walk the sidelines to help. So you're not stuck in a space. You walk, you help, you coach, right? You can walk behind the field, just walk around and coach your players, but don't get on the field. We still use a size 3 soccer ball. We still play 4 10-minute halves. We do have goalkeepers now. They have a very small area to work within to use their hands. They can only play half the game, and there's no putting. When the goalkeeper has the ball in their hands, the other team must move behind the midfield line. It's called the build-out rule. We'll talk about that more in the 7v7 space, but it's the build-out rule. They can't punt the ball. We will restart throws with throw-ins, restart play with throw-ins. There's still no heading. And on the goal kick, in keeper possession, the team moves to half field, as I mentioned. At the 7v7 level or the U10 level, the coach is now on the field, and now you're stuck more in a coaching box. We have referees at this level. Use a size 4 soccer ball. We now start to play 2 halves of 25 minutes each, with substitutions happening during those halves. We have goalkeepers. Again, they still cannot pump. They have a bigger area to play in. The restarts are with throw-ins. Still no heading. We still have the goal kick and keeper possession rules where the defending team needs now to move out. It's called the build-out line. It's not the half-field line, but it's the build-out line, and we'll show you what that looks like. And we start to play with a variation of offsides, but not exactly offsides. We do a modification to the rules. So here's some of those modifications from U.S. Soccer. We just talked through most of those. They're like penalty kick is not as far out, so that's a modified rule. Free kick, sometimes when there's a free kick, it'll go outside of the goal box instead of going into the goal box, so that's a modified rule. Different things like that. So there's some modified rules. So the first one I want to talk about is the build-out line. So the build-out line basically utilizes to help restart play and let the team offensively have possession. U.S. Soccer did a study and found like 70% of goals at the younger levels were scored after goal kicks and goalkeeper possession, because basically players would just basically press really hard to defend, and it was really hard for teams to get out of their own area. So they created to help teams build out of their own area, they created a build-out line. The build-out line comes into play for goal kick, keeper possession, and goal kicks, and it's utilized to help with some variation of offsides call. If you really want to go dig in deep into this, we do have referee training on the build-out line that's pretty extensive, and I could link that in our notes as well. So I will do that. So because I'm going to cover the build-out line more heavily in the referee training, I'll keep it kind of minimal here. But basically, if the goalkeeper has possession of the ball, the other team needs to move behind the build-out line, which is shown here. So blue has possession, red has to move behind the line. As a coach, you need to help your players get back. Tell them to get back behind the build-out line when the goalkeeper on their team has the ball. They cannot enter back into the space until the goalkeeper makes a play on the ball. Goalkeeper can bring the ball all the way out to the edge for both if the ball's in their hand, and goal kicks can be taken all the way out at the edge of the box. It doesn't have to be taken in the smaller box at this level. Build-out line can also be used to call basically offsides. So in this case, here's the build-out line. Blue's got possession of the ball. You can see goalkeepers back here. So offside generally deals with 2 players being behind or even with the defender. So the build-out line becomes the new center field line at this point in the offsides rule. And so in this case, because all the players, there's not 2 people back here, and because this player is standing behind him and the ball is being passed, we would consider this cherry picking, and we would call an offsides. It would be an indirect free kick at the build-out line. Now in this scenario, remember the build-out line becomes the new halfway line. All the players are still pushed up, but because the build-out line is back here, which is the now new halfway line for the offside rules, this is not offside if the player does it. These players are pushed up. They can go all the way to here before being called offsides. In this scenario, everyone's inside of the build-out line space. So even though these players are pushed up, we would not call offsides because the ball has entered the build-out line space. In this case, even though there's a player back in the build-out space because they're not involved in the play, and this player is directly on goal, and this player is behind the ball, we would call cherry picking. So again, what we're trying to do is just get rid of cherry picking opportunities. At the 9v9 rule, modifications, we use that size 4 ball. We now have 9 players on the field instead of 7. We have 2 30-minute halves. Goalkeepers can play the entire game, and they can now punt. We can restart play on throw-ins. There's still no heading, and we play normal offsides rules. So that'd be the variation here. Again, showing that here. There's an offside video here that we will reference, and I'll have it in the description that you can go fully through the offside video and learn more. The short version is there should be a goalkeeper on this screen here. I apologize that if there's not two players even with this player when the ball's played. So when the ball leaves this player foot, this player is offsides. So if there's a goalkeeper, there's only one player in this screen, and so you can see the ball is coming through. If there's a goalkeeper here, there would not be two players. Offside. This is the assistant referee. This is the center referee, and they're calling offsides in that scenario every time. On this one, any part of the body can be offside that can play the ball. So at the 9v9 level, the head is not considered an offside position because you can't play the ball with your head. But even a foot beyond the line is considered offsides. I've instructed the referees who've gone through training, if it's that close, if it's just like a tiny little foot is offsides, I mean just like a little knee, don't call them offsides. It's too tight of a call to call. This one is showing you that if a player can be in an offside position if they're not in the play. So player 2 here is in offside position, but player 1's taking a shot on the goal. This is not offsides because this player is not involved in the shot on the goal. However, if the goalkeeper saves the shot and the ball bounces out and then player 2 immediately shoots the ball, because the red team never gained possession of the ball, player 2 was in an offside position when they played the ball, because when the initial ball was played, which was the kick, here they were in offside position. Now the ball's been played to them. In this case, player 2 is now moved over and they are blocking the eye line of the goalkeeper. They are in offside position because they're interfering with the play and the ability for the goalkeeper to see the ball. A player can be offsides, player 2 here, but player 1 is playing a through pass between these two defenders. Player 3 is in an onside position, not offsides because not involved in the play. This is not an offsides call. In this case, player 1 makes a short little pass that never goes beyond the defense. Player 3 out hustles these two red defenders, gets the ball. Because at the time the ball was played, they were in offside position. This is an offside call. U14, basically we are playing full FIFA rules, minus we have some half changes we do. Everything else is full FIFA rules. And you'll see that here. So substitutions, we are a rec league. We want players to play half at every game and half of every half ideally. So we will allow substitutions at any dead ball, corner kick, goal kick, throw in, any team's throw in. If for some reason you've had players waiting to sub and it's been a while, we've instructed referees to basically, if a goalkeeper gets the ball, to blow their whistle, allow the substitutions to come on, and then restart play by giving the ball as a drop ball back to the goalkeeper to restart play. We want your substitutes to come on the field. I say we've instructed referees. Understand we have a lot of referees. Not all of them came to training, and not all of them will watch training, and so they may not all do that. And so you just have to realize that some referees won't do that. But when we get a chance, we will instruct them. And we have a position called the referee assigner mentor that you can meet with after your game and say, hey, we had this referee come in and they didn't do this. It was 3 minutes, our players were standing there and the goalkeeper got the ball 3 times. We'll get it addressed and we can talk to the referee post game and get that improved. So this is rec league, so the rule on that is on the throw-ins, we give some breaks. So if a player kind of jumps or doesn't do a proper throw-in, we will give them a redo. We've instructed the referees to talk to you and the players about that before the game. But as the season goes along, we may eventually say, you know what? We're now towards the end of the season. We've talked about this before. Let's not have any bad throws. We're just going to give it to the other team. So if a foul throw does occur, it'll go to the other team. We've told the referees to be lenient on the handball calls. Players are just not developed enough to understand how to get their arms tucked in a safe way constantly. So what we've instructed, as long as there's not blatant handball, where players are just running with their hands above their head or way outside their body, try to avoid the handball calls, with the exception of if the player hits their hand and then it immediately falls to the ground and they shoot it and they score a goal. That was an advantage from the handball, and we don't want to give that advantage too directly into a goal scoring opportunity. And the same thing's true for the player who is getting a handball that then passes the ball to who immediately scores. So in those scenarios, we're saying let's call the handball because we don't want to give the goals, but otherwise we're trying to be pretty lenient on the handballs. And just real quick on the foul calls, there's four types of fouls in soccer. There's three official types of fouls called in soccer. They're called common, reckless, and serious. But at the recreational level, because there's new players, you also what I'll call incompetent fouls, where someone just doesn't know not to kick someone in the back of the legs to try to get to a soccer ball, right? We've instructed referees to kind of vocally tell players not to kick players in that scenario instead of call the foul. But if a player refuses to stop kicking the back of the leg, we'll make it a common foul. Now there will be a foul call. Um, Basically, you'll see a whole lot of incompetence fouls, especially at the younger age levels. You'll see some common fouls. You'll rarely see a cautionable foul, and you'll almost never see a sending off. I have not red carded a player ever at Noblesville United, and I refereed some games, over the years there. Um, and I only gave 2 yellow cards in the fall for the games I refereed, and I refereed a lot of games in the fall. Understand there's something called an advantage call from the referee. This call basically allows a referee to call a foul without blowing their whistle because they think your team has an advantage, and it could be productive for them not to call a foul in the moment. So from time to time, you'll see a foul. If you see a referee put one hand out, two hands out, or yell advantage or play on, that means they recognize a foul has occurred, but they're letting your team play advantage. Next up is the PK setup. Just want you to understand that your players need to be outside the box when a PK happens. Goalkeeper needs to keep their feet on the line when they do that. We hope to avoid most PKs during the game by being nice about handball calls, but they will come up. Player will put their hands above their head, and you got to call it. So if you can help your players figure that rule out, that'd be great. You may get water breaks if you have very little subs that day or it's really hot. Ask for a water break, or a referee may give you a water break in some scenarios. The clock does not stop during the water break. So get your players to get water and get them back on. It's not time to coach, it's just time to get water and get them back on the field. But we do want to basically always have player safety in mind. And honestly, fun and player safety are the two main things for coaches. Occasionally we'll shorten a game because weather's coming in or something, and we want to make an official game. We won't add stoppage time unless there's like a serious injury. Hopefully there never is, but it does happen. Otherwise, we're going to try to play pretty closely to whatever our time length is for our game. Your game becomes official if you make it to halftime. So, and usually the only reason we wouldn't make it to halftime is because of weather, right? That's the only reason. I just want to say if there's ever a issue with anything, a coach, referee, a parent, you can file a post-game report for us. This will help us understand that something happened, and I'll have the links in the description below here, the video. But it'll help us understand what's happening and help us to figure out what to do. For me, the most important part of this is that you describe the issue in as much detail, and then you tell us what you believe the best solution is. Because if we understand where you think you're headed, it helps us to say, like, yeah, that's reasonable, let's do that. Or if it's not, we can tell you. But we do try to treat most situations with an incident by incident. So our most common thing is to basically say, hey, you're suspended, player, coach, parent for a game can't come to the field next game. But sometimes something it causes more, something less. So just a heads up on the post game report. Okay, let's get into practice planning now. So we're moving on to the next topic. U.S. Soccer has instituted a thing called Play, Practice, Play, and the idea is that it's more fun to play soccer than it is to practice soccer, but you need to practice. And so what they recommend is that you should do some kind of game at the beginning of your practice. It should have teams and a way to score. Ideally, you would make it 4v4 or less if possible, so a lot of people have touches, and it should be fun. I can tell you that I learned about this in 2017, I think, maybe 2016, and I changed how I was running practices. So we started with the play phase, and I think it absolutely encouraged players to show up to practice on time because they knew they were going to play something fun at the beginning of practice instead of doing what I used to do, which was like dribble the ball and do technical skills. And so definitely think about doing that. You have resources to help you with that. We'll talk about later. Then you should do your practice phase where you basically are saying, okay, we need to work on our goal kicks. We need to work on, our counterattacks, whatever it is you need to practice. Ideally, it would be aligned to that first play phase. And then if you have time, you can do another play phase at the end of practice that's fun. That's more game-like with even maybe it's 6v6 now on the team or whatever. Could be a scrimmage against the other team. I'm realistic on this. You may not have time to do play, practice, play, and it may not always align. But I would recommend you always start practice with a play item for your team. Give them 15 minutes to play something or 20 minutes to play a game that's fun that they're going to really enjoy. And they'll just and then you can get into the nitty gritty of what you need to cover and make sure that your team is functional and competent. I just want to show you real quick that when it comes to practice planning, there are practice planning tools. This is US Soccer's tool with the requirements. I had to put this together as one of a lot of different things I had to do to get my D license in coaching for US Soccer. You'll see that, I have to have make objectives, key actions, key qualities. I had to show what it would look like, measurements, how we would play it, describe it, have keywords I would use, have guided questions I'd ask players during the training, and and have answers for those questions. So I could basically run that training properly, and then make sure I emphasize, for example, defense is the key on this one. So, in order to practice well, you need to basically arrive on time. No, excuse me, arrive early, and I would use my field to the best of my ability. So I would set up different zones so that I could rotate between my activities in that practice quickly. So if I'm going to do my play activity over in this, maybe the left side of my field, then we're going to move to the right and do something, and then we're going to move to the center. Like, you get your cones laid out so you're good to go. Greet the players as they arrive, ask them what they're up to, how they're doing in life, get them going on the scheduled start time. Parents hate it when your practice starts at 6:30 and you've done nothing at 6:36. Okay, start practice on time. And throughout your training and your practice sessions, you should be using the basic model of teaching, which is to experience. What's the experience? Reflect on it, develop an application. But you also should be checking what you're doing and adapting it or changing if it's not working. Constantly giving positive reinforcement, utilizing those keywords, ask good guided questions. So players, instead of telling players what to do, ask them questions to help them understand and think about what they should do. Demonstrate quickly, do a quick demonstration, get out, let them do stuff, pause, demonstrate, improvement, get out. Give feedback. He has a great job, right? Good effort there. One of the things I'd like to see us improve on is our ability to, cut that passing lane off or whatever it might be. And then apply the learning circle. So each sort of, as you develop as a coach, you're always constantly improving what you're up to. We have a lot of resources here, so I'm going to show you some of these just so you're aware of them. But tons of resources. To say I don't know what to do with coaching just means you haven't looked, because the internet's full of coaching resources. But we have some resources I'll show you real quick. So at Noblesville United, we have underneath the resources tab, we have individual resources. We also have coaching resources. So we have coaching guidebooks for you. So I'm just going to take U10, and you can scroll through this. These may not be 100% up to date, but they should be close. And it'll take you through a lot of what we're talking about here. And then we have practice plans for you. So here's guided words and different activities you can do for your practice if you're not sure what to do. And we have 12 weeks of practice. Our seasons usually have between 7 and 9 weeks, depending on which season we're in of practice. So you have everything you would need. You could run through this, and you have everything covered if you wanted to for your practices. That's Noblesville United has. So that's, again, Noblesville United resources. We also link to other references and resources here as well. Noblesville United also has a YouTube channel where we put videos. You will see that these are my videos here that I've been posting. These will take you through different strategies and ideas. We'll talk through these throughout it. We have playlists, so if you want to know key concepts of soccer, activities to do, skill activities, generalized coaching information like how to use Team Snap, those are all in here. What we're teaching referees is in here, that kind of stuff. So we have videos in there. Absolutely utilize them. We'll reference them quite a bit. Another resource I particularly like, another link I'm going to include, is this online soccer academy. This guy started this, way back when YouTube just started, like 2007, 8, and I used him over the years. And he takes you through different skills like passing and dribbling, free kicks, whatever it is. but he designed it for younger players, so he describes in detail how to do it. So you can't necessarily make your players go watch these YouTube videos, but you can come in and understand. If you don't know how to teach a proper striking technique for a shot on goal, you can watch his video about that, and he'll tell you the key points. Write them on a note card, take them to practice. When you're doing your next shooting, activity, you can talk about that with them. And so I really like this resource as a reference as well. Another one you might like is Soccer Coach Weekly. They do a couple things here that it's useful. They have like newsletters that you can sign up for, and they just send you stuff in the mail. There's coaching advice, practice plans, drills and games. Not everything's available to you without subscribing, but you can go in there. But the newsletter's free, and it's really great, and sends you some activities each week to do, some concepts to think about. And so I'd recommend that as well. SoccerIndiana.org, or Indiana Soccer, also has an education area here full of resources, including training session plans. So if you don't like our training session plans and you want to use somebody else's, you can jump in here, and they have different weeks and activities of their own plans as well that you can utilize. And you can see it's set up the same way, and it's sometimes similar to what we have. So definitely think about that as well. So you can see you don't need, even if you don't know anything about soccer, if you can just simply read a document and then translate it to your players, you can coach. And then there's just a lot more resources out there, so don't be afraid to do some research and figure out what is out there, what works for you, and what you want to, and then use it. So here's an example practice plan for maybe a first practice of the season. And I'm assuming an hour and a half practice. Your practice, if you're at the younger levels, you may not be able to go an hour and a half. If you're at U6, they might have enough attention span for an hour and a half. But have an introduction time where everyone talks about who they are, what school they go to, do they know someone on the team, find out some information, right? Find out what positions they like, then do a play activity, and then do a quick team meeting where you set goals and expectations. I wouldn't make it 10 minutes for younger players. This is something I did for like U14 level players. I use something called a technical circle, and that's where we then basically will work on dribble, pass, different skills, throw-ins, head balls, whatever it might be for the age level appropriate. I call that the technical circle. I'll do a formation walkthrough because I'm trying to get them to touch the ball, and I want to see how they are with the skills. And that's what that's doing. I'm trying to assess my players because I might only have one or two practices before our first game. I'll walk through whatever formation we've chosen. I'll talk about our goal kick defense, our goal kick offense, our corner kick defense, and our corner kick offense. And because people love to shoot on goal, I don't usually do shooting activities, but I will do shooting activities at the end, sometimes that first practice, just to see what kind of shots they have and what my goalkeepers can do. So that's a lot of times what I do in my first practice. After that, though, practice might look something like this. I'll start with a game. So this game is called 3-Zone Scrimmage. We'll do a team meeting / water for 5 minutes, talk about our previous game, talk about our upcoming game. Let them just take a break from work because usually I'll work them pretty hard when we do these kind of games. Do our technical circle. I'll try to do a technical thing for about 10 minutes of every practice for me. And then we worked on defensive clearances, safety passes, 2v1 safety passes, and then we played a game of World Cup. So really we were talking about defense this game. This whole thing was about defense, and so the 3-zone scrimmage is about defenders in the middle. Then we talked about defensive clearances, and then can we get out of trouble instead of just clearing the ball? Can we maintain possession using safety passes to get ourselves out of trouble defensively? And then I let them run around like wild animals playing a game called World Cup, which they like. I have videos to show you on this, but in general, just understand you should have a goal kick strategy if you want to get out of issues. So a couple of different videos that I'll link in the description for that. Same thing with corner kicks. You should have an idea of what you want to do on a corner kick offensively and defensively. And again, this video will walk you through that. Same thing with throw-ins. The idea is on a throw-in that, eventually every single player in a space becomes an option on a throw-in, and you know what to do with it. And I talk you through different ways to throw the ball in that you can train your players on. You should have a kickoff plan, right? You should have a thought for everything you're going to do on the soccer field, and you may not be able to cover all of it immediately, but eventually you should be able to cover it with your players over the course of a season. We do have equipment closet. It's on the side of the building with the concession stand where we basically would serve food out of the concession stand on that side of the building near the water fountain. The code is there. There are bags labeled size 5, size 4, size 3 bags. I think the size 5 right now are on the near the top shelf, and the size 3s are on the lower shelf. There's a lot more size 3 bags than our size 5, so that should be a clue as well. Each bag has some balls, some cones, and some pennies, and it should have the right amount of pennies for the players that are expected to be on your team. So if your team has 10 players on, there should be 5 to 6 pennies in that bag. Please put everything back. Get it before practice. Put it back after practice. We need that. We need to share that equipment. It's not for you to take home each night. It's not for you to dig out of other bags and grab stuff that you want because you want more of this or that. It's just what it is. We're hoping with some changes we'll have more equipment to hand out. So if you feel like you need more cones, there'll be hopefully more cones in the fall. But for now, use what you got. I will say this: I eventually just bought my own equipment. It's $20 to buy. I think at one point in life it's like $20 to buy 50 cones. I know with everything going on in the world, maybe it's not the cost anymore, but I would have 50 cones I could pull out instead of have to worry about that kind of stuff. But please put this equipment back and put it back in the right shelves. Really quick, again, this is a reality check on the play model, is that you can't always do everything with it, right? You can't always go through every single play of it, but if you could, you'd start with the play phase, you'd cover your key concepts based on that first play phase, and then you would try to end with something fun at the end of the practice that's related as well. So just kind of keep that in mind. Just a quick reality check on your players. They don't control when they show up to practice. Most of them don't, they're not driving to practice. It's mom or dad. So don't punish them for being late, right? They have a lot of other things that are going on in their life, so don't punish them if they miss games, or don't, because, you missed practice, you're not going to play, or, don't punish them. And if your player shows up for a game, I don't care if he's at halftime, put him in for the second half. And I've had to do that, and it's not fun, but just do it. Put your player in the game if they're at the game. Got it? Get as much help as you can as a coach. We try to get a head coach, assistant coach for every team before the season, but if you need more help, get more help. We're happy to roster 2 assistant coaches per team and give them the benefits of being a coach. I always try to get 2 to 3 people out there with me so that we can run the practice smoothly. We can get through stuff more quickly. Players can have different voices in their head instead of just mine. I really, really like to get help. And you can even get help just in a moment. Like sometimes it might just be, can I get 6 parents because I'm going to do this one thing and I need them for just 20 minutes, and you tell them before practice that it's going to happen in an email, and so you have people there ready to go. Be realistic that everything you do is not going to work, and it's okay. Just use that learning cycle, improve, adapt to make it better next time you plan to do it, but always keep it fun. And then remember, just 97% of soccer is played without touching the ball, so it's super important to help players know where to be and when to be when they don't have the ball, right? It's better, basically, if you have the ball on offense, you need to spread out to give space. And if you don't have the ball, you need to get compact, essentially, to be in a good defensive position to shut down passing lanes. So when it comes to practice, make sure you have a plan. I like to plan out in advance. I wrote them on note cards, so I have them in my pocket and I can pull them out because I need to remind myself what I'm doing that night. The more help you get, the easier it is to run a practice. Try to keep your lines. If you need to do an activity that has lines, keep them as short as possible so that players can get more touches. Transition between your activities quickly. So it might be, hey, go get a quick drink of water and then get right back into the next activity. Stand on the side of the field you're coaching. If you're trying to do an offensive-minded drill or activity, make sure that you're standing with the offensive players. And if you're doing a defensive one, stand with the defensive players. Coach from the side of the field you need to coach from. Or if you have multiple coaches, it's nice because you can basically, like, you coach defense, I'll coach offense. You float and coach the wing players, right? You can, if you have 3 coaches, you can basically divide the coaching up and focus on different aspects of the coaching. Always instruct the individual. Focus on what is done right more than what is done wrong. That's really important. Hey, I really like that. I could see that you were trying to get that ball, that player through that path. I know it didn't quite get there, but the good vision, right? Be positive. And then ultimately just make it fun. All right? Before the game, you should decide on a formation. tons of formations exist. We don't tell you which one to use. Again, there's a YouTube video with what I think I put in 3 to 4 common formations that you most likely could utilize at different levels and some of the benefits. Check those videos out to help you choose a formation. Now remember, a formation is where you start the game in. Ultimately, you get a shape because people move around and they're not always exactly in the same space. So we could call it, you start at a formation, but then during the gameplay, you're looking at your shape, essentially. Before the game, I want you to understand that there's numbers for every player that exist. You don't need to use them. I just want you to be aware of them. So when you go to read soccer documentation and improve your coaching, you're aware that numbers exist. So the goalkeeper is 1. Your outside backs would be a 2 and a 3. Your center backs are your 4s and your 5s. Your defensive midfielder is your 6. Center midfielder is an 8. Oh, I think I got it twice. Your attacking center midfielder is a 10. Your wing players, which can be at the midfield role or a forward role, are your 7 and your 11. And then your center forward, your striker, is a 9. The reality is you could have 2 6s on your game. Like, you don't need 1 through 11. You have 11 players, depending on your formation. You could be in a formation where maybe you have 3 backs, and then you have 5 midfielders, and 2 of those are defensive midfielders. If that's the case, you might have a 4, a 2. You could have a 5, a 2, and a 3, 2 6s. Then you could have an 11 and a 7, and then you could have 2 number 9s. Like, these things happen. Like, just know that their numbers relate to like what the responsibility is on the field. And I know I moved those pretty quickly, but you can see those are here, and you can always pause that video and look at them if you'd like. So before the game, I would send an email out to parents. I would, every week after practice, 2 days before the game, so usually Thursday, I will send an email telling them what we did in practice and reminding me of upcoming games, any news they need. And that's just an example here. It gets into communicate. We want, the more you communicate with the parents, the more you look competent. The more you look competent, the less they're going to question what you're doing. And the less you question it, the easier it is for you just to coach. And so that's what we want. So send an email out a couple days in advance of games, summarize what you did in practice, and then that should help. I like to plan out your sub rotations if I know the players are going to be there. This can be easier when they're younger, a little harder when they're older, because they sometimes won't tell you until by the last minute. But at least understand, your timings. Like, hey, at the 9-minute mark, I'm going to sub this player in or out of the field, or I'm going to sub players in at the 9-minute mark of the first half. Have a plan, essentially, so that you don't go in blind and have no idea what you're doing, and then you lose it. The more players you have on the bench, the more you need to have a plan. Okay? I would arrive to your game 20 to 30 minutes before your scheduled kickoff. Greet the players that come in. Say hello to their coaches. Say hello to the referees. Talk to your players individually about what you want them to be aware of the game and in their role. So as we warm up, I will walk from player to player and be like, hey, the plan for you today is to play right back and maybe a little center forward today, or whatever the plan is. And when you're in that right back role, make sure you got a tight mark. Don't get caught with that gap pass behind you. Make sure you're staying with your player. Let the center back pick up the center, or you pick up your player. And then I have warm-ups I do before the game. There's a video here that I'll link. They're just what some of the warm-ups I do. They're pretty easy and basic warm-ups, but they get the players moving a little bit and cover everything I want to cover before the game starts. If you're the home team on game day, we're transitioning now to game day. Coaching the game, essentially, is what we're transitioning into. Have a ball ready for the game that's aired up, that you've chosen, if you know what it is, ready to go so that we can start the game on time. Choose a captain for the coin toss, an instructor captain if you choose, or if you want your captain to make their own decisions, that's fine. But instruct them if they win the toss, if you want them to have the kickoff, or do you want to defend a certain side of the field. So during the game, our number one goal is safety and fun. You can see it's not winning. It's not killing the other team. It's not screaming where the player needs to go at every moment of the game. It's safety and fun. Okay. So keep track of your time. Have a stopwatch either on your phone or your wrist or around your neck so that you know when to sub. I would always start your game when the game starts, immediately look at the other team and what formation they're in, and then watch it for a little while, because you can then go to your bench players and start talking about their formation and if there's spaces and gaps. May lay it out if you have it on a magnet board or a whiteboard to show them, or even I sometimes will use cones, just throw the cones on the ground and say, hey, this is what they're running. Where do you think there's space? Where could you be? And start talking about movement. And I like to do that with those players on the bench. And when the first group comes off the bench, I'll talk them through that. So then I just watch the game to see what is there that I can coach my team on. So the most common thing I see is players are unmarked on the backside. If your team's disciplined and spread out and offensively has the ball, look for the backside person to be unmarked. And that's what I'm like, hey, if we can switch that field, that backside player's open, right? That could be a long cross. That could be maybe a pass to defensive midfielder across. But find the space where there's a weakness on the other team and try to exploit it for scoring purposes. And then I will also try to help the field players to see things, but tell them exactly what to do. So, for example, one of the common things I'll yell is, hey, do we have everybody marked right now? So it's a question, right? But the reality is we don't have everybody marked right now, and I know specifically who's not marked right now. And it's not so dangerous that I'm going to tell them to mark them. I'm just going to remind them to get marked. And then hopefully players will respond, check, oh, I'm not marking anybody, and go mark a player more thoroughly. 2 minutes before you put your subs in, I like to get them up and moving. If they've been sitting, I like to make them sit on the bench so they're not running around kicking a ball and balls are flying across the field or whatever. Make them sit on the bench, but then 2 minutes before time, I get them up and loose. Jog a little bit in place, whatever it is. Get them to the center line, so be subbed into the game. As your players are coming off the field being subbed out, give them a high five. Once the play resumes, then I will go back to each individual player who just came out of the game, and I will talk to them individually about something I saw with them. And so if I have a plan in place, I know who's coming on and off the field. I know who I need to be watching more closely so I can talk to them when they come to the bench. So keep in mind, most of soccer, as a coach, you have very little to do in the game when it comes to actually coaching the actual game. This is not basketball where you can run a play. This is not football where there's really stoppages you call a play. Things are happening. And so what I'll tell you is, coach the player. The game will happen without you. And I can't tell you, I've probably only seen 50% of the goals my teams have ever scored, because at some point they score a goal and I'm coaching players, which is what I'm supposed to be doing on the bench. I'm looking behind the plays with the defenders and talking to them, because right now I need to talk about adjustments with them as our offense is moving up the field, or vice versa. Our defense is working and I'm working with the offensive players and talking to them. So coach the players. Don't worry about the game. It'll happen. The other thing I would do is just make notes. So that can be done on a piece of paper, in a phone app, whatever it is. Oh yeah, hey, we're really struggling with our corner kick marking. So work on it in practice, right? Half times are 5 minutes. Make sure players have water. I like to bring extra water, but you're not required to. But some people drink through the water. I always tell kids, don't drink all their water. You'll get a sloshy stomach, and they do. They'll still try to regulate that to little sips. If there's a question about a call, you can talk to a referee, but do it so really respectfully. Answer any questions from players, and then talk with your team about how they can improve their performance second half and start the second half. The key thing is the only thing players control is their attitude and their effort. So I usually talk to them about that. It's like, hey, let's keep our attitude good second half. Let's keep our effort level high. It's a pretty common thing that comes out of my mouth. Oh, yeah, and what do you control? You control your words and your actions. You control when you sub players. You control what positions you put players in. You sort of control the formation you're using, because once half starts, it becomes a shape. And basically, that's all you control in a soccer game. Everything else is going to happen. So keep in mind that, so that you're not losing your mind on something you don't control. Don't joystick players. Don't yell players, move left, move right. Let them figure it out. That's part of the developmental process. You can help them, but don't joystick them. Constantly tell them where to be everywhere in the game. Recognize that you have the least amount of control of this game, which I kind of mentioned already, than any other game when it comes to soccer coaching. At the end of the game, line your team up, usually along the touch line or the sideline. Give fist bumps, shakes, high fives to the team. Make sure every single one of your players gives a high five. Have a good attitude. Be good sports. Shake the referee's hand. regroup with your team and talk about what items too they could improve, what went well, what could be improved, answer any questions, acknowledge emotions. If someone's upset that day, be like, hey, I know you're upset, and try to help them understand that's okay. But at the same time, you don't need to be, right? We're here to have fun. Like, are you having fun? Focus in on that. Make sure you pick up all your balls, your clothes, your water, your trash. Leave your field better than you found it if possible. Hopefully you found the field in great shape and you can't leave it any better, but leave it better than you found it if you need to. And then talk to your parents or guardians if needed, and talk to referees if needed. Just a heads up, we do have a weather alert system at the fields. It's on the concession stand. If lightning is within 12 miles, a red light will start flashing. You're okay to continue to practice and play. If you hear a siren go off, then that means all activities are canceled for the next 30 minutes. Every time the siren goes off is a new 30 minutes. Then eventually, if there's no lightning in the area for 30 minutes, then the siren will go off again, which I know is kind of confusing, but it'll be 30 minutes in between time, and that'll mean that it's out of the range and you can resume. If it's during practice, you may be able to still squeeze in more practice time. If it's during a game, there's a good chance we probably will cancel the game. But when these things happen, you need to get the players off the field into cars, or if you're at a practice and the cars aren't there, you can put them underneath the concession stand awning. Throughout the season, make sure you're picking up the pictures when they have them and hand them out. Make sure you pick up your trophies or medals and hand them out. Make sure you get your players all lined up for pictures at the end of the season. Make sure you say something nice about each of the players to the parents at the end of the season, and then make sure you tell them how excited you are to have them at the soccer field next season. We want the players to stay involved. We want them to have fun, and simply encouraging them to come back and keep playing and saying nice things about them is a great way to continue to get them to play. All right, let's start with coaching tools here. The first thing is you might want a whistle, or if you have a big voice, I have a big voice, I don't want to use the whistle, but you have a whistle. You'll want to watch to make sure that you're staying on schedule and time and that you're getting things done in practice. You'll want a penny, which you can get in the bag if you need to. I always carry a small first aid kit with me. There's ball pumps that are available to you in the closet to pump up balls or carry your own. Cones are available to you in the bag or carry your own. I like to have a dry erase board and magnetic board to show them concepts before we sometimes do them on the fields, because I think sometimes it's easier to see it from an overhead view versus try to show it when they're moving sort of in the plane and space they don't see it. I carry tissues with me, and then I carry headbands for the girls' hair. I'm a girls' coach, so I carry the headbands. Well, I used to be, and I'm a co-ed coach, I guess. Also, we use TeamSnap. I have a video about how you can set up TeamSnap so you can add things like a little image. You can get rid of some of these tabs up top. You can put your team picture in. You can track your team's results and the stats in there. I cover all that in that video. I also have a just kind of reminder that the chat feature in there will only work in the app. So if you're not a mobile user, the chat functionality does not work on desktop. I am not a chat person on it. I'm more of an email person. So I email stuff use that to email my parents and guardians out of that system. This is the Subtime app. Again, we'll have all the links in this, but this will allow you to put players on the field and drag them off and on, and you can create lineups and you can make sure playing time is even as possible. Soccer Drive is a resource I utilize to create, to draw things, and I'll draw images or make things, and then I will send them to parents and show parents like formations, for example. Here's a formation we're playing this year, and this is what we want to do with it, and I'll send that out through that. But they also have resources that are really great on an intro to coaching soccer, and I want to show that to you. So I think if you go under coaching education, you'll see that they have learn how to coach soccer, and they have, I think, 17 different mini lessons about how to do that. So here's game day under coaching and over coaching, for example. So I've talked about game day a little bit, and they may not say exactly what I'm saying, but here's a little bit of information, see, just a little bit, to some things you want to think about coaching. So there's just joystick coaching is a common phrase you'll hear, and there it is. So I really like this resource, and so I'll link it to you as a reference for you in the process. And then the other piece they have then is their drawing tool, which I think is /draw, if I remember right. And it's a pretty easy tool to get after and then draw what you want pretty quickly and easily into space. You can see I'm just going after it, right? So I like that tool a lot to help draw, and sometimes I'll print these off, put them in a binder, and take them with me to practice. Like I said, you can download these things and send them to parents to help them understand what's going on. US Soccer also has a drawing tool. If you do your soccer coach's license, you get 1 free year access to that tool. It looks different. You'll see that there's kind of the tools there. I won't open it right now, but this is what you can draw with it. You can do a little bit more, but I will say it's a little bit more complicated. Okay. So there's some of the most common tools that I utilize. There's tons of tools. You can use whatever you would like. Next up is just again reinforce, communicate. So communicate with parents before the start of the season, your goals, expectation, philosophy, playing time, formations, etc. Use tools like Google Forms to find out if players have medical conditions, food allergies, playing experience they have, preferred playing position, etc. I use that. I hope we'll do better about maybe the registration process in the future to carry some of that questions for you, so you can go into team stat maybe in the future and you have that information if you click on a player. But I like to use Google Forms to pick that up before it. I would email the parents once a week covering important information about practices, game pictures, and tournaments. So part of that email I write out, I also will cover the game a little bit and talk about what we did well and what we can improve on, and then show them, so they understand that they can understand how I'm analyzing the game situation, because they're obviously, as parents, analyzing the game situation on their side. I don't go into like crazy detail, but I'll give them a paragraph or two about that. And then obviously if there's any issues, let us know at the club. Otherwise we can't resolve them, fix them, and we're dedicated and want to help resolve and fix those. Sign up for newsletters that allow you to be fed soccer information whenever possible. Look for your resources that you may need. So for example, I wrote out coaching cards, so you actually can get playing cards with activities that you could utilize. I sometimes use those. I have a set of those. There's videos, YouTube. There's not just Noblesville United, obviously there's soccer videos everywhere. Websites. Create resources to help your parents and players see formations, movements, etc. Create resources to help your parents understand what's happening in soccer. If your parents are educated, it makes for a better soccer experience for your player as well. So pursue more knowledge, particularly tactics, strategy, activities, coaching, and pursue your coaching licenses. Be interested, be engaged. One of the things I like to say is if you want to be good at something, then part of being good at something is wanting to be good at something. So if you want to be a good soccer coach, that's the big main thing. Now go spend time doing it. I probably spend an hour to 3 hours a week on any given week at least, just naturally reading about soccer, looking at a resource about soccer or whatever it is, because I'm interested, right? And that helps me grow in my knowledge and helps me improve as a coach. So we do have a coach incentive plan here. And that coach incentive plan is that we give you refunds back if you have a player, or we give you swag if you don't have a player in the league. So if you get your background check, your heads up, in your safe sport, which is required for you to coach, we'll give you back $25 refund for one of your players per team you coach. If you participate in evaluation, camp, clinic, or extracurricular event, we'll give you $25. So if we're offering a coach's training in the future and you come to it, you can get $25 back. If you help us on, work day, $25, right? If you get your Grassroots license for your age level, we'll give you $50 back, because we want you to get licensed and understand and reinforce everything we talked about in this video. If you get your D license, we'll give you another $25. Just so you know, there's requirements around the D license. In order to qualify for your D license, you need to take the 11v11 face-to-face training, and you can take one other of these trainings face-to-face, and then you need to do at least a third training online. So 2 face-to-face and 1 online. So you may do like 7v7, 11v11 face-to-face, but 9v9 online, or whatever it is. If you do that, then you can qualify to enter your Grassroots license. You have to do that Grassroots license in Indiana, because otherwise it's more expensive. It's only $25 in Indiana, or if you go to another state, it can be like $500. So we're not paying $500 for you to do that in another state. It's only here. And that Grassroots license, that D license here, is it's going to be like 60 to 75 hours worth of work, and it's going to take. I had to do Zoom calls for an hour and a half for 12 weeks straight. It's a big deal. So that's what it is. If you're a Rec Plus coach, we will also, if you come to the Rec Plus trainings and you help out, which we basically expect you to do, we'll give you $25 more because we have to run those trainings for all those players together in groups, and we want to invest in you by helping you understand how to train better. So you kind of see that. So at the rec level, you could get up to $125 rec reimbursement if you were to do everything, and at the rec plus you get $150. And if you don't have any kids playing, we'll give you something equivalent value: cool hats, cool shirts, cool stuff. Just so you kind of see it here, this is the coaching pathway. We're asking you to start here to get your licenses that you need. So I scaled up sort of because they changed the pathway when I was in it. They didn't have this pathway when I started coaching. They had like F through A licenses. So I actually have an F license, an E license, and then I got my 4v4, 7v7, 9v9, and my 11v11, and then I did my D. Once you get to C, they expect you to be a professional coach. That's why you can see we're in the pro pathway, and this training is like $1,000. So probably not going to do a C. There's no reason to unless you want to go pro. So there's the requirements for the coaching program. There are some things here that probably will go out of date by the time this video is made, so you can ignore them, but there are some videos that are some live in-person sessions there if you'd like. The final thing I want to mention is there are other programs besides U.S. Soccer Coaching to get certifications in. We're not paying for this, but United Soccer Coaching is the other big one. I want you to be aware of it. They have more specific certifications, so you can get like goalkeeper only certifications. You can get like attacking and defending certifications, along with some training that's the same, such as play practice play type training, etc. It is more expensive than U.S. Soccer, and I would say some of their training I think is better, and some of their training I think is worse. I think their specific training on topics is really good. Their generalized training is not as good as U.S. Soccer. And that is it. So if you got questions, reach out to the club, because obviously this is a video and we won't be able to answer them here, but we'd be happy to help you and improve your coaching. So thanks for watching through the video.